Why are we not showing up in AI answers? And why do AI models pick competitors over us and our brand?
Hi, Jason. Welcome to Utopia Decision Room podcast. So every software founder spent the last decade learning SEO, Google rankings, and demand capture. But the surface shaping buyer decisions has changed. Customers are now asking ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and Perplexity what software to use, and most founders have no idea how their company is being described, recommended, or compared inside those systems. Jason spent years building personalized ranking, recommendation, and information retrieval systems at companies including Quora and Goldman Sachs before founding Egaki AI, a platform helping brands understand and improve how they appear across AI search platforms. Today, we are talking about how software founders can stop being invisible inside platforms now influencing pipeline, positioning, and purchase decisions. So for anyone watching who hasn't met you yet, who are you, what is Egaki, and what problem are you trying to solve right now?
Hi, Kim. It's so nice to be here. So I'm Jason, founder of Egaki. We help business leaders understand and improve how their companies show up in AI responses across different platforms like ChatGPT or Claude. My background is in artificial intelligence and machine learning. So over the last 10 plus years, I have built production systems in personalized search and recommendations and in market signal extraction, which supported millions of users at companies, including Quora and Goldman Sachs. So the reason I've always been drawn to this field actually goes a bit deeper than engineering itself. I studied cognitive sciences at Brown University and computer science at Johns Hopkins. So I've always been interested in both sides of AI, the technical systems we build and the human intent those systems are trying to interpret. And now with AI, we have a real chance to connect those two sides directly. Complex human intent on the one hand and business outcomes on the other, instead of relying on proxies like keywords, etc. So I would say this is a shift that Egaki was built for. In the old search, businesses optimize for keywords and links, but in the AI era, people are asking complex, contextual, personalized questions, and AI decide which brands to surface and recommend or to ignore completely. So Egaki helps businesses improve how they show up in this new AI layer, so they show up for the right audience in the right context.
That's really the new thing that AI is changing with businesses globally. So if a founder spent the last 10 years building a system optimizing on Google and SEO, so what is the one uncomfortable truth that they need to understand about buying decisions now and about how other customers or their customers are looking for products similar to theirs?
Yeah, I'd say from the founder's perspective, the biggest shift we're witnessing now about search or SEO or geo, that is moving from a keyword-driven paradigm to a new paradigm that is driven by contextual semantic alignment. For years, I would say SEO has been about building backlinks and capturing the right set of keywords, and you optimize page by page. But now AI systems evaluate your content much more holistically. So in the lens of these AI systems, the content on your website basically forms a cluster of embeddings in a multi-dimensional space. And once we adopt this view, we can answer some of the most urgent questions raised by business leaders around the world, like why are we not showing up in AI answers? And why do AI models pick competitors over us and our brands? And the answer will be straightforward. So your content cluster doesn't meaningfully address the queries people are asking. So basically, the embedding space of your content is not close enough to the embedding space of user queries. It's literally as simple as that. And I think in this emerging new era of AI search, is that most founders have not realized that geo is actually infinitely more similar to personalized feed on your social media than traditional SEO. Apparently, different people get different answers to the same query. We're experiencing that every day, which is because these AI models are implicitly encoding your interaction history, your persona, your preferences into an extended set of queries, and then personalize the AI responses for you. So from the perspective of founder of an emerging business, it's really important to bear in mind that when you create new content, that new content will be channeled by these AI models to the personalized feeds of different people. and based on how AI judges the relevancy of your content. So to make sure your brand gets discovered by your ICP, your ideal customer personas, you should always think about who are your target audience. What would kind of appeal to them? Will they like your content? So if founders don't figure that out, your content will either end up in a personalized feed of the wrong people, or when it does show up in the right feed, it will send the wrong message to the viewers.
So if someone's company is already on Google and SEO with all the old content, will it be shown on the LLMs as well? Not the new content, but old ones that has been around.
So these AI models literally are routing your queries through different routes. I would say some of your queries can be supported by the AI model themselves because those models are being pre-trained by a large corpus. So sometimes your old materials will already be in the training materials, but there's not a guaranteed results. Sometimes your materials might be judged not fit for being part of the training materials. That's when you will prefer to be to trigger the web search, right? So hopefully your old content will show up in the web searches like Google search or Bing search. Through that route, hopefully your content will show up. But again, it's not guaranteed. So the surefire way to guarantee the appearance or presence in AI responses, I would say, is through creating high quality content.
And what is the most common thing founders discover inside ChatGPT or Claude about their own company that completely catches them off guard? Will there be any inaccurate information or misinformation?
Yeah. This is a really good question. And I actually think this deserves more attention from founders, especially in technology. There's something called narrative management. So in an ideal world, each business controls their own perfect, honest narrative about their own products. But nowadays, especially more recently, this is no longer true when your competitors publish those so-called comparison articles. So basically positioning their own products against yours. And of course, more often than not, these articles position their own products more favorably, maybe by making unfair comparison or using outdated information about your brand. So I have seen founders literally surprised to realize that their AI narrative is being shaped less by what they say about themselves, but more by what competitors say about them. You see, that's really a dangerous place to be, right? Because if you don't actively define your category and your positioning, the AI systems do it for you by using someone else's framing, which basically means that instead of building your own narrative from a clean slate, but you now need to first undo the other's unfair depiction of you, which is bad for brand building.
Yeah, exactly. And those are also kind of like marketing battle cards that people use. So it's like A/B comparison. You compare a competitor company to your company, and you lay out like the pros and cons, and you always position more pros to your side. So how can founders protect their brand in this way? Do they have any control?
Yeah, I think the founders do have leverage. I think the foremost way to do that is actually the accurate articulation of the positioning of your products that is consistent across the board, across all the content. And this is actually more important than what most people think. And sometimes founders think they're doing that, whereas actually they're not. So I would say this is because the issue is often in the mathematical representations of your content, not in the wording or phrasing of your content. So you might have a blog post that you think perfectly conveys your core value propositions, but its embedding unfortunately fall in the wrong embedding space. So when your brand is consistently mentioned with the wrong cohort, you know there's something off with your content, and your content cluster basically needs more either reworking or reorientation. So that's something, I think that's the foremost leverage founders have.
So it depends on the quantity of content that you put out as a brand compared to what your competitors are putting out. So the more content, the more it will get surfaced.
Yeah, I would say number, quantity is one thing. I would say for geo success, I would definitely say that quality is over quantity. So in terms of quality, I would define it as, first, your articles need to be inherently cogent and coherent. So it's around a central topic. And two, you have to make sure that your content are addressing some specific user personas. So you're not targeting everyone. Because if you are optimizing your content for everyone, you're actually optimizing for no one. So you have to make sure that you're actually optimizing your content for that someone. And that someone has to be your ICP, ideal customer personas. And thirdly, I would say this is no less important than the previous 2 points, is that you need to create a unique content. So your content needs to be clearly like different from your competitors. So they are channeled through your unique voice instead of being like each other. So this is the age of AI. So a lot of us are creating content using these AI tools like Claude or ChatGPT. So we easily publish these similar content, but that's really bad from a lens of AI systems when they do the retrieval or recommendations, because when you are not differentiable and different enough from your competitors, that basically means AI doesn't have a good idea of when and how they should position you. They should project your message. So yeah, I would say these 3 points are really important.
So it's kind of like AI slop. So what if a company only uses AI to create content but tailored to the ICP? For example, Claude or ChatGPT. So will it be seen as some quality by LLMs?
I would say the issue is not whether this content is drafted by human beings or is created by AI. It's literally just how unique you are, how different you are. Are you addressing a specific user segment? And is your message consistent across the board? So if we figure the 3 points out successfully, then it doesn't matter whether it's from AI model or from a human being. No.
And so, like right now, how are real buyers using ChatGPT, Cloud, Perplexity, or other kind of LLMs during software evaluation? Will they usually ask, should I buy a B2B software? Or do you think it applies more to B2C customers, like end users?
Yeah, I think this is interesting because I think we're definitely seeing different kinds of AI usage. So there are definitely different buyer behavior patterns, and they correlate with how much people trust AI. I think this also explains, like in B2B business and B2C business, why people are using AI differently. So I've seen some people use AI, just treat it like a better search engine. Some use it like a personal recommender, and there's some other people are already started to use it almost like a decision guide for what to buy, which vendors to compare, and which option to shortlist. So when I believe as the AI native generation grows up, we will see AI-driven decision-making percolate into more and more categories. To B, to C, eventually we'll see AI-driven decision-making. So the strategic question for company to ask is not whether they appear in AI answers, but whether they're trusted and recommended in the right buying context. I think in terms of how these AI models can impact these buying decisions, so I would say like literally from the moment you type in a prompt to the AI platform. So it started the process to tailor the answer for you right away. It started to influence your final decisions. So I would say this is just like when creating personalized search and recommendation systems. The first thing we do when receiving user query is to do query pre-processing, which fixes the typos in your query, understands the user intents embedded in your query, and then expands the query with synonyms or relevant queries, and then adds in your personal user context. And these are exactly what happens in AI models as well. So once you launch a query, AI will start to embellish or decorate your query with this relevant information about you and the query itself, and then expands it into a set of queries. And these queries, like I said before, like which will be routed differently. Some of those can be answered based on the pre-trained model itself, and some will trigger a web search. Then the responses from all these queries will be collected and going through a process of re-ranking, which again involves a lot of personalization and tailoring only for you. And eventually you get your final answer from AI. This is a simplified view of what happens behind the scene, but you can see a lot of processes involved active personalization of the answer for you. And this are the moment, literally the send your query to AI. I think this also kind of explains why the concept of context engineering is such an important topic nowadays from the GEO perspective, because we all want to make sure we get responses that are relevant to us instead of being generic. Yeah.
And like, what stage of buying journey do you think people usually use AI to evaluate what type of software Like
Mhm.
they're looking for a software, or they already know the software from social media, and they just want to see reviews, or they want to track some
Mhm.
recommendations, and they ask AI like the final decision.
Mhm. Yeah, I think this also varies from buyer to buyer. So I would say according to the data I have observed from my clients, almost equally, there are people like users who are exploring these new categories, exploring certain software from the perspective of entering a new category. And there are some people who are shortlisting a few alternative solutions, and they are trying to see what kind of recommendations AI have for different situations. And there are also like other group of people who are trying to switch away from existing solutions and trying to find better solutions. So yeah, it's literally up to, like I said, what kind of trust level you have with AI, how much AI can make decision for you. So if you are just treat it as a search engine, the declaration like why these different results show up, then probably you just ask like, show me some solutions in this field and I will make decision myself. But if you are just seriously considering a few alternatives, then I would say that's a deeper use case. You are trusting AI more to make decision for you. So I would say that's the situation where AI can make more impact on your eventual, on your final decision making, the purchase decisions. Yeah, but literally, it's either for B2B, B2C buying stages, different kinds of user personas, we're seeing all kinds of user behavior patterns. So literally across the board.
So have you actually purchased a software or product after getting the recommendation from AI?
I would say personally, I haven't done that because that's a kind of aligned with my trust with AI. So I wouldn't trust AI to make decision for you. So my AI usage is more like treating it as between a search engine and a personal recommender. So I won't go beyond entrusting AI to make decision for me. So I will have to do some digging myself to see like, yeah, what's really happening solutions. Yeah.
Yeah, it is also important to get recommended by AI.
Mm.
Like when I'm looking for a video editing tool for this
Yeah.
podcast, I
Mm.
search is the best video editing tool for podcasts. And they'll give me obviously the same top 5 recommendations.
Mm.
And I will do the free trial and test it out if it's really as what they say, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't purchase it immediately. So do you think a lot of buyers actually doing this to see what is recommended, then test out, then maybe they'll purchase?
Yeah, I would say definitely there's a lot of biases built in these different AI models. I believe um, these AI models can be biased or influenced, to use a neutral, by the content published by different vendors. So it's definitely possible. Like if you have someone has a weak products, but spend lavishly on PR or marketing, publish a lot, then those materials will like impact these AI models, either through training data or through web searches. So these kind of weak products might also win over a sizable portion of the market, at least for a short period, which is not ideal because in an ideal world, I would say everybody gets what we deserve. But I'd say the reality is often more convoluted than that. And I think on top of that, there are also these black hat players who exploit the weaknesses of AI to gain unfair advantages for them. And this is all because the LM industry is still in its, I call it, infant or adolescent stage, and by no means mature yet. So I would say that the deal here is that fundamentally, these LLMs are just a deep neural network that was trained on a huge corpus. It's no more than that, literally. And given any input, it does is pattern recognition and predicts the most likely next token. So essentially, there's nothing like human reasoning or complex cognitive processes going on behind the scene. So whatever it was trained on, it would reflect that like a mirror. So even if that information is not 100% factual. Yeah, so that's a in. Yeah.
Yeah. So that also brings my next question. Like a competitor with a weaker product outperform someone with can a competitor with a weaker product outperform their competitor with a better product inside LLM recommendations? Like how and why does that happen?
Yeah, that's definitely possible. So like I said, this is mostly through like marketing or PR, working on your geo campaigns. But again, like LM is just a neural network that reflects whatever it was trained on. So if it was fed these like untrue or not 100% factual information, it will like a mirror reflects it back to you. So if there are like black hat players or who try to exploit such weaknesses, then it's definitely possible. And also there are some nuances here, because one interesting thing about how these different models behave is that different models seem to prefer different information sources. So that kind of is a good thing for different brands, because if different models prefer different information sources, on average, they kind of put everyone on the same level. So see, here's an extreme example. With like, if you're running your store on Amazon, you will realize your Amazon store pages won't show up at all on ChatGPT, because ChatGPT simply doesn't index Amazon pages. So instead, you will check out Claude or other AI models. And if you insist on showing up on ChatGPT, you would consider setting up a Shopify store in parallel or something like that. So this is an extreme case, but in reality, there are 50 shades of gray in citation preferences of different AI models. And I would say these kinds of nuances sometimes escape founders, but they are extremely important to figure out to ensure their brand success when different LMs are involved. I think this is actually a good thing. I call it a good thing for founders or owners, because there's no single information sources that can impact all these different LMs, because each of these LMs have different preferences. So that's why I call it, we kind of put everyone on the same grounding, because no one can claim they are monopolizing the information sources that can impact everyone. So from that perspective, it's a good thing. But with that said, I'd say LMs are not without its weaknesses. Yeah.
So if you want your brand to show up in different LLMs, for example, GPT or Claude or Gemini, you need to know where the LLMs, specifically each of these three, are getting their data sources from.
Yeah.
Then you have to be there where they're getting the data from.
Yes. I would say these cross-platform differences in terms of AI models preferences are pretty salient, pretty drastic. So you need to figure out for each of the platforms, based on the branding message of your own products, what kind of strategy, geo strategy or SEO strategies you want to adapt. Because not only are these different models using different information sources preferences, but they also prefer different style, writing style or structure style. So it's really important for founders to figure out these different nuances to ensure their multi-LM success in terms of geo. Yeah.
So how can a founder tell if their competitors are already winning with positioning over their brand inside different LMs?
Yeah, I would actually compare the effect of a geo campaign to that of a successful Google Ads campaign from the competitors. And actually, a successful geo has a perfect analogy with online ads, especially with the native ads that we see today that are seamlessly inserted in social media feeds for everyone. So they're all impression-based, but geo effects are longer lasting than the traditional ads campaign, because if no competitors take any equivalent geo action, its effects will linger there for a very long time. And I have actually observed this from my clients in some less competitive industries, where I believe no players have actively invested in geo yet, or at least have not been able to meaningfully move a needle yet, which means there will be a huge reward waiting for the first person, whoever becomes the first mover, will gain the biggest reward. Those are totally different in fields like SaaS or CDG, where the core geo metrics are literally changing a lot from day to day, because everyone is competing fiercely for the few spots and AI recommendations, which is a classic adversarial game being played. I think once you started on active geo tracking monitoring, it becomes pretty clear quickly where you are on the map in this game of geo in relation to your competitors.
So what are the first few signs that a brand knows that they are one of the first few for their industry and their sector to be ranked on LLMs? Like, is there any signs or signals that a founder can tell that they are first there compared to the other competitors?
Yeah, so I would say this can be seen from both the traditional channels, like, for example, if you're on the Google Search Console or GA4, you can look at the traffic to your site or your content. And if you have you are using some geo platforms, you can track the performance in terms of share of voice on those platforms. So, like I said, it's pretty clear when someone is starting to win in your own niche. So you see, maybe you are losing share of voice to our competitors. Maybe you see your traffic dropping significantly. This can happen within a very short period of time. Even though the one to 2 weeks, it can happen really quickly. You see someone's taking over the key prompts you're tracking, the keywords you're tracking, and you see this both on the geo platform you're monitoring and on the traditional channels like GSC. So it'd be really, really clear once you see it. Yeah.
So what should us do after watching this podcast? Like literally to test themselves, they can tell whether their competitors are already there and what should they do.
Yeah. So my recommendation would be to first think about their ICP, their ideal personas, and then anticipate what kind of high intent, high value questions those users tend to ask about your product. And then you pose those questions to AI quickly and see if you show up at all. And then follow up by asking why you're being ranked at that specific position. So that way you can quickly see how AI understands your brand directly, and then immediately informs your next steps, like whether or what you need to fix about your site, your landing page, marketing copies, or content. Yeah. So that's my recommendation.
Interesting. So what are the smartest software founders already doing differently when it comes to AI discoverability? Are they targeting multiple platforms, specific platforms, or what you mentioned, like finding out what their customers are asking and then position themselves as the solution?
Yeah. I believe foremost, having a really clear goal when drafting any content is definitely a winning strategy, maybe the winning strategy. And it should not be limited to content creation. For things like designing your landing page, marketing copy is also extremely important, but you make sure everything serves a well-defined purpose. So that was on the higher level, maybe on the strategy level. And then on the more, let's say, execution level, I would say as a founder, you should definitely be clear, like who are you trying to appeal to? Who are your ideal customers? Given the new article, you should be clear about who this is written for. And you can now say this copy is for everyone, like I said. So that's not going to work because optimizing for everyone, again, is optimizing for no one. You have to have a well-defined focus in your messaging, which needs to be consistent and optimized for particular personas. Also, like I mentioned, another reason why this is a winning strategy is that AI prefers content that's meaningfully different, meaningfully unique. So basically, you don't want your content to be similar to our competitors. Instead, you really want to be meaningfully different and have your unique voice. And mathematically speaking, you want to carve out your own content embedding space instead of overlapping with others. And the most natural way to do this is to actively think about your ICPs, your user personas, and their use cases. So what are the use cases that they will find your product most useful? What are the situations for that? And if those are clear, the founders will really have a good head start towards building unique content. So I would say I like to put these things in mathematical parlance. So it'd be like the content cluster for each of your ICPs will be internally coherent and well connected instead of being dispersed all over the place. And then the content clusters also need to be interlinked among themselves so that your brand tells a cogent, organic, coherent story to the outsiders instead of disparately talking to a few separate personas. So I would say successful companies I've seen definitely adopt this strategy. They align their content with each other first, and then align with the anticipated user queries. So which is, I would say, a winning strategy for almost any field. Yeah.
So basically, they need to be very clear about their positioning and who they're targeting. And what about companies who are new or they just launch or their positioning are not as sharp? So how can they actually manage this? Because they are just fairly new and they're still testing the product market fit.
I think it's actually a good stage to be in because you have the opportunity to test out a lot of different potential user personas by like a probing using different content. So you might find out like your content is actually winning so much ground for a certain persona, so much better than baseline, the default baseline. That's when you realize, yes, so this is a persona I should be targeting with my product. So I would actually say this is a good place to be, even better than some more mature stages of businesses, because you still have opportunity to try and to actively probe freely what kind of personas are best fit for my products. So you have opportunity to experiment with different personas, with different contents, and in this process, you can adopt your unique voice. So yeah, from my perspective, it's really a great place to be.
And what about how many ideal client persona do you think is needed? And do you think targeting AI agents is also a winning strategy now or not at this moment?
Yeah, so I guess the number of personas you want to adopt for your products is really should vary from field to field, niche to niche, and product. Um, I think this is really a question for founders. So they need to really figure this out. There's no like fixed rule, but we can just follow to figure this out. So maybe do more market research and talk to your customers in person and figure out what are their pain points, what kind of solutions they are waiting for, and what are some of the issues they wish there were solutions for. And I would say for AI agents, these personas might not apply because the AI agents on the market nowadays, I have seen they're not very personalized. They're just following a fixed recipe. It's not actively incorporating lots of different nuances or context, fine-tuned for different businesses. I think this is also a lesson, not a lesson, it's a big opportunity for someone to develop this new generation of AI agents, which do have personality, which do have different requirements. So they make this decision differently. Because you see, people might argue that the AI agents nowadays, they do have personality because I can, for example, fill this person or that person into one agent so that it can answer a question imitating the voice of that person. But I would say this is not reasoning. There's no cognitive processes going on. You're still just predicting the most likely next token according to that person, but you're not learning the thinking style of that person. So from my perspective, it's not real personality. If it's not real personas, you should be targeting. So I would say it's a challenge for new AI builders to come up with a better version of AI agents from that point.
And so do you think like getting rank on AI and LLMs would be a new go-to-market strategy? For example, a company from UK want to enter the US and they use this as one of their go-to-market strategy, or maybe the other way from US to Asia or to UK.
Yeah, actually, this is a recommended strategy, especially for new businesses, because you can bypass all traditional route, like you build backlinks, you do your SEO audits, your optimize page by page for different keywords, basically following the traditional SEO path. But now you can just optimize for AI search results and show up directly in this new entry point. I call it new entry point to the internet, which is the LM's different AI models. So yeah, it's I would say the highest leverage the founders of new businesses have in this generation, because this is this AI of the generation. The people have to make full use of it.
And so this brings me to my next question. What does most software founders still getting completely wrong about ranking inside ChatGPT, Claude, or other kind of LLMs? Like, do they think that this is just a side pillar for the strategy, or do they actually prioritize it as one of the main marketing channel?
Yeah, I love the question. So, my background is in ML. So I've actually built systems in production that retrieve and rank information. And that engineering perspective basically changes how I look at SEO or GEO. So these days, there are lots of SEO gurus prescribing advice like you need to implement lms.txt file, or following the laundry list of SEO audit, like adding metadata tags here and there. But I don't like that. I'm never interested in those stuffs. Instead, I try to understand the first principles, like what are the algorithms under the hood here. So that's what I've been doing for the last 10 plus years. So from that perspective, when you look at SEO or ranking through that lens, you realize that AI search is literally no different from a personalized search and ranking problem. So which is fundamentally about multivariate statistics. So your content becomes vectors and your pages become clusters. And your visibility is determined by these differences and similarities with the user queries and intents, which have their own vectors and clusters. So I would say that's actually the magic that me and my team are trying to bring to this SEO industry, because lots of people are getting it wrong. So I'm confident that to adopt this perspective, AI systems are no longer black boxes governed by mysterious rules, but more like an engine with detachable pieces, which can be studied and understood clearly by all the practitioners. So literally this turns SEO into something more predictable, because you can see now how AI interprets your site. So we understand why AI is choosing your brand over your competitors, or vice versa. Yeah.
And do you have any data from your clients and your work, like what industries are already heavily investing in this sector, and what industries are still kind of behind?
Yeah, so from my data points of my clients, I would see CPG is kind of reacting really fast to this new trend, followed by SaaS, traditional SaaS. Whereas some of them, as an example, like outdoor billboards, they're not actively adapting to this new trend. So you can tell from a dashboard, from the data, either from Google search or from the product I'm building for these different clients, but literally no one is taking any action regarding their geo performance, which is clear from the core metrics like share of voice or average ranking. You see no one changes to week, let alone from day to day. So their contents are not conforming to the new standards, asked new AI models. So they're not optimizing for their own personas. They're just sending out these generic messages through these like new content, optimized more for quantity than quality. So yeah, so it's pretty clear like what kind of industries are kind of adapting actively to this new trend, whereas some others are not. So I'd say first CPG, followed by SaaS. Yeah, those are the top two I've seen.
And you've been building Egaki inside a category that barely existed maybe a year ago or more. Like, what made you decide you want to jump into it and start a startup around this?
Yeah. So you're asking, the question is, what made me decide to build this?
Yeah, like why did you decide to build this? Because 18 months or maybe 12 months ago, there's nothing like this yet. So it is a new category and everything is uncertain. How can you be so sure about something that's so uncertain?
Yeah, so I think this comes from my own background and my, I guess, unique background, my unique experiences. Like I said, I work in the field of personalized search and recommendations. So which a field is trying to find and present most relevant information to the right audience, to the right user, which is the essence of personalized search and ranking. So if you see from that perspective, the problem of geo or personalized AI search or SEO is literally not any different. It's like you want to be presented the most relevant information to you and to your query. So from that lens, it's literally the same problem. But here, the geo problem has a twist, which is that the information from users are not transparent to you. That's inside a black box of different AI vendors. But with machine learning and NLP, we can kind of infer these user information based on whatever we have, either through market research, what we know about your products, what we know about different queries, the volumes, and the habits of different users. We can user information. So that's a moment when this problem of geo literally become the same with a personalized search and ranking. And so that's why I'm so confident on the theoretical level, why this is viable, and on the let's say practical level, because my product has already started to serve real clients. So I would say we have observed the real persona specific divergences. They're so salient, so drastic. They kind of confirm my theory that this geo problem has to be approached from the personalization perspective. And that's why I say we make the deliberate product decision to build Egaki around persona, around user intents and decision context, which according to Egaki, are the most important deciding factors in geo success. It's not generic prompt checking. So maybe like an easy version of a geo tool is like, tell me about whether my brand shows up on ChatGPT So I would say that's useful, but not very useful, because the deeper question is, are you showing up for the high intent buyers in the right decision context? And against which competitors are you showing up? So that's why I say we chose not to treat geo as an extension to SEO with prompt tracking and extra analytics. Yeah.
And when you first started it, like, did you like compete or had any advisor, or did you ask anyone? Because it is still a fairly new category. You're defining an industry category. It's not there. So do you have any doubts before that? If you have, do you ask anyone about the doubts, or you just went in straight ahead?
Yeah, so I would say in my case, there's no single person that I refer to for these kind of decisions. Because for decisions that could shape the future of a company like Egaki, I basically try to gather input from people who have context, the real expertise, and the real skin in the game, which is really in the game. But I also think that one of the founders' responsibilities is not to outsource his important judgment. Because I would say my argument is that the most strategic questions, they don't exist in isolation. There's usually a long chain of customer conversations and product decisions, like decision to the product around personas, user intents, and market signals, and team dynamics, and founder intuition behind all of this. So a lot of the context is hard for anyone else to fully understand and access. And because I'm the one who has been sitting through all of this from day one, not other people, apparently. So I would say for me personally, I've been carefully, but ultimately I make the final. But with that said, I deeply respect expertise for example, for go-to-market, for example, I rely heavily on my go-to-market co-founder's judgment and experience. And as a company grows, I will also expect to bring in more people with deep expertise across other fields like product design, engineering, and sales. So yeah, I definitely don't want to be the smartest person in every domain. So I want to build a team with a board of strong experts that can challenge me, hopefully. Yeah.
So it's always to hire someone who is smarter than you. That's kind of the strategy.
Exactly.
And what do you think about building this new category in the US market? You are not from the US, you don't grow up there, right? So do you think there's additional challenge for a non-US founder building in the US market?
Yeah, I would say there are definitely challenges. So first thing, I'm from like engineering background. I don't have a lot of existing connections in the business world. So there's definitely a gap from being a founder from an engineer background to someone who is pretty active in the business world. So this is a gap that needs to be actively filled by either like forming new collaborations, partnerships with existing connections in the business world, or to learn these new skills on my own. So, or through like hiring or bring new people on board who have the skills like business development, go to market. Yeah, and from cultural perspective, I think it's not that shock for me because I've been here for more than 10 years. I didn't have experience working in an environment outside of US. So literally US is the first place where I built my. So I wouldn't say I experienced things like a cultural shock, things like that, but it's purely from the perspective of a founder who's from an engineering background. There's a lot of new things I need to learn, lots of gaps I need to close for myself. Yeah, from that perspective. Yeah.
So definitely, if you work in the US before for 10 years, I think you won't have any culture shock anymore.
Yeah.
Because you really get used to the pace, especially the speed of working.
Right.
Everything is instant. So what is one advice you will give founders who come from engineering background like you, who are also building something in the US market?
So I say definitely first, amplify whatever you have, whatever expertise or experiences you have. So maybe it's in the skill, it's purely in coding. So that's your home base. You need to make sure that kind of expertise and experiences are fully amplified when you're building a business. So maybe initially you take over all the responsibilities in those regards. So that's the first, amplify whatever existing experience or expertise you have. I think the second point, but no less important, is that you need to recognize, figure out like I said, what kind of gaps we have towards building a successful business. Maybe it's in go-to-market or in business development. So if you want to learn those new skills from scratch, whether or not that's worthwhile in terms of time and energy, or those can be fulfilled by bringing someone with the right combination of skills and expertise on board. So you need to be able to relegate those responsibilities to the right person or people. So I think sometimes I see it's engineers to delegate responsibilities.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's pretty hard for engineers to recognize these kind of gaps they need to close in order to build a successful business. So I guess be humble and be willing to learn and from people. At the same time, amplifying whatever expertise you have. I think that's right thinking patterns I would adopt. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, one question following this, like, how do you people with a very strong engineering background that can successfully build a product, like decide who do you want as your co-founder? Are there any check boxes or check marks? Because obviously they are the one that is going to grow the company for something that you build. So how do you choose who is the perfect person?
Yeah, I think for go-to-market, definitely someone who has the intuition of about the market. So I guess this is true either for US or for Asia market. You need to have an intuition of the market. While at the same time, you need to have the intuition about how this new product we're building can fit in the existing market. Because the market is existing while your product is forming, right? So you need to your new product, while keeping its edge, its pioneering features, they can fit in the current markets because you want to sell your new products in the existing market. So unless you want to say like I create a new market, you want to make sure that this go-to-market can kind of close a gap between your product and the current market. So he or she have the intuition about what kind of potential your product has and what kind of unaddressed questions or problems the current market has. So that person, that go-to-market, to be able to do this clearly. So that's also why evaluate a go-to-market person. Yeah.
And since you mentioned that just now, you don't really have a strong social connection or business connection because you're a technical person and you don't really do that kind or that amount of networking. And what would you tell people who have a similar background like you? Would you encourage them to go out and talk to people at events and speak about their product? Or do you think it would be better to get a co-founder who can do that part?
So ideally, you have to do both. So on the one hand, you definitely need to be able to recognize that currently you're not 100% the expert in go-to-market in that regard. On the other hand, you should actively develop your muscle in those regards so that you're not that far behind in that field. So I think especially for engineer converted CEOs, so they should be able to be someone who can overcharges all the different fields of your business. So whether it's engineering, go-to-market, business development, or design, you have to have some ideas and some say in all of them. So maybe you're not experts in some of those fields, but you need to have a pretty holistic picture or overview of that field. So I would say my policy is that delegating the right responsibility to the right people, while at the same time keeping myself fully prepared to jump in myself to those different fields. And that's also the advice for like founders of similar background.
Okay, that's very interesting from technical founder perspective, because people who have a very strong engineering background obviously will care more about the product, the quality, and they'll be building it a lot of time. They spend most of the time building it.
Sure.
Whereas a business co-founder spend most of the time talking about the product, networking when there's no product yet. So it's kind of like opposite.
Yeah, both sides need to be understanding of the position of the other side. So you cannot say like if this person is not coding, then it's not contributing. That's not true. The other person cannot say like you're not getting new businesses for our product, then you're not contributing. So again, which is also wrong. So I think for team to be successful, they need to be understanding of the position of each other. I think this is also true when the team gets going forward. So everyone has to be kind of cognizant of what people are doing and respect and recognize their achievements. amply, so that is the team can stay like coherent in the long term.
Mm-hmm. And so you mentioned industry experts for this sector to build a
Mm.
strong team. But since this is such a new category, like how would you choose from the people that you will hire in maybe the next few months? Because this is literally a new thing that you don't teach in school or online.
Mm.
So how can you determine that this person has the right industry knowledge?
Yeah, I would say on a higher level, people who are willing, first, people who have an understanding of currently how things are being done. Like they need to have an understanding of how ICO has been done for the past, let's say, 15 or 20 years. On the other hand, they should be courageous enough to ditch all of those old practices and be able to pioneer into this new field. So they're not afraid against the grain, let's say, against the grain, against what SEO people are prescribing as the best practices. So we're willing to look at the data, look at our clients' data. So what are the data telling you about the feature or product design? What are the core metrics in this geo field that we should really be measuring instead of like the old metrics? So yeah, I would say people who are not afraid to venture into the wild new while knowing where they are coming from. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wait, so 5 years from now, do you believe for software companies, would
Mm.
Google ranking and SEO still matter, or AI
Yeah.
recommendations and ranking would take over it completely?
So going over 5 years. So I was saying, so my thinking is that Google ranking will definitely still matter, but
Mm-hmm.
the ranking inside of AI recommendations will become more important across most business metrics. And the reason is actually quite straightforward. The shift is a lot like what happened in social media. So yes, you can still search and browse its ranked results in social media, but once the platform understands your intent, your preferences, and your context well enough to produce the most relevant information for you, so why would you keep searching manually, right? So people increasingly rely on the personalized feed because it brings relevant information to them instead of the other way around. So that's what happened to social media personalized feed. And I think online search will follow a similar pattern. So people will not always want to inspect, say, 10 hyperlinks on Google or compare vendors manually or run multiple searches. Instead, they'll ask AI system recommendations, comparisons, and shortlists, and trust the answer layer to more of the work. Yeah, so I think this is definitely the trend.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that this trend will be globally across the globe for all markets or more towards the US? Because I believe in Asia, people don't use as much now compared to the US.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, this trend will take over on the traditional search globally, but the real progress will depend on like how fast researchers can come up with highly effective, highly customized language specific or culture specific version for all the different cultures. Because currently, I think it's only for the major languages that AI models are doing a good job, whereas there's so many other underdeveloped the models are remain underdeveloped for some of the other languages. So for use cases for those different cultures and those languages, there are lots of, I think, work needs to be done for users in those cultures or regions to have a good user experience. But yeah, this trend is the real progress depends on how how diligently get to it.
Yeah, and especially if you work in this sector and have a startup in this sector. So what would you answer if someone comes up to you and say, "Oh, how can I get mentioned by ChatGPT?" Like, what would you tell them? I'm sure you get it a lot.
Yeah, so I think basically the 3 points. So one, figure out who are your ideal customers. And two, think about under what kind of situations, what kind of use cases they will find your products most useful. And three, you think about what kind of highest leverage prompts you want to track for your business. So these are 3 points. So whether or not, let's say you cooperate with your geo success, you need to be really familiar, really like crystal clear about the 3 points. I think that's also crucial to building your own business. You need to figure out like what are the pains for your customers.
Yeah.
So whether or not you use it on your SEO, it's in your product development, your content creation, it percolates down to every corner of your business. So it's really crucial you figure that out. So yeah, but from a geo perspective, these 3 points decide like how we track the geo success of your business. So what kind of share of voice you have at this moment, how it compares with your competitors, and what kind of average ranking position you have, how you're benchmarked against your competitors, in what kind of sentiment across different models, across different personas. So these are instead of important considerations you'll have, like before talking to anyone who work in the geo or SEO. But yeah, that's the 3 points, the pain points, mostly about the pain points of your customers, to think about it.
Okay, so I think that would be quite important thing for anyone that wants to start a startup and a business as well, because if you don't know the pain point, then it's kind of hard to build something in that category.
Yeah, that would be a dangerous position to be.
Okay, that's very interesting. So I have one last question for you. Like, while building this startup and your previous pivot, what is one thing that you wish you know earlier? Like, for example, is there a mistake you make or something that you wish you know, or someone told me about this earlier that you can share with other founders so they kind of know?
Yeah, so that's a question. So I would say personally for me, in retrospect, it becomes clear. But at that time, it wasn't so intuitive to me as an engineer at that time. So I would say it's actually don't go against the trend. So I think trend nowadays is the AI. So my advice would be don't go against such huge trends. So when you're in the 2010s, don't go against the trend of social media. So when you're in the 2020s, don't go against the trend of AI. So I guess this is an important lesson, kind of costly lesson, but I learned both in terms of time and money. But you don't want to be in that position where you are against the currents. You want to follow it and see what you can contribute to this trend based on your experiences and expertise, instead of going against it. So that way you can kind of quickly win over your own market share, which belongs to you, to your products, and also get lots of support in this process, which would not show up when you're going against it. Because if you are, say, in 2020s trying to get engaged with some traditional industries, I think that's doable. And maybe you have a unique insights perspective into how your product can contribute to that industry. But I would say, why do that? Or why not AI, which is maybe like a positive least for your products. But again, that depends on your personal goal and personal insights about different industries. But for generally speaking, for a new founder who the founders want to be, then this is my advice. So don't go against the trend. Instead of see what you can get trend.
Yeah. So have you against the trend in the past before?
Yeah. So in the previous incarnation of my product, it's like kind of like, so basically instead of seeing how your brand performs on different AI platforms, you're tracking social platforms. But again, here is the question of why do that? Whereas it's taking over everything. It's taking over search engines, it's taking over traditional social medias, it's acting as a personal recommender already more and more. So why you limit yourself to social media, which are losing ground? Also, why not join AI, which is gaining ground? So for me, that's kind of like a natural succession to my previous version of.
So basically build something or build a product or software that is aligning with what the trend is moving towards, because it will be easier to scale it, to leverage the trend, to let other people discover your product as well.
Yeah.
Okay, that's very cool. So I'm going to close the podcast today. Thank you, Jason, for joining.
Thank you for having me.
And we hope to see you again on the next time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.